wave sweeps entirely the only bridge in Rincon.
The Civil Defense Force provided aid to the residents affected by the deluge. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Bureau of Fire Protection goes code red to secure safety during the New Year's revelry.
Philippines to build a permanent military outpost in Ayungin Shoal.
5 opposition presidential candidates call for a rerun of DR Congo elections.
Thousands displaced after heavy rains engulf Indonesia's Aceh province.
And South Korean actor Lee Sun-kyun dies at 48.
Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Nevada,
España,
Paris, France,
United Kingdom,
Washington, D.C.,
London Bureau, Papua New Guinea,
in New York,
Washington, D.C.
Mata ng Agila, Mata ng Agila,
Mata ng Agila International.
Trusted, connected, on point.
The Bureau of Fire Protection, or BFP, is currently under a code red status until January 1st to ensure a full force during the New Year's revelry with the aim of preventing additional fire incidents this year. The code red status requires an immediate response from the BFP if their services are needed, and no personnel are allowed to take leave to ensure a full force. BFP spokesperson Fire Superintendent Annalie Atienza mentioned that the code red, initially raised within the Bureau since December 23rd, could be extended depending on the situation. The BFP is actively conducting fire prevention activities, including roving operations, fire truck visibility, and inspections of firecracker manufacturers and sellers. In 2023, the Bureau recorded a total of 15,679 fire incidents from January 1st to December 26th, marking a 20.7% increase from the previous year's tally of around 12,000 during the same period. The majority of incidents occurred in residential areas, with the main causes being electrical ignitions due to arcing, electrical bursts from loose connections, and incidents caused by lighted cigarettes.
The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board reported that 5 days before the December 31st deadline for the PUV modernization program, 73.5% or 31,058 traditional jeepneys in Metro Manila have yet to be consolidated. These jeepneys could risk losing their franchises if they fail to meet the deadline. Similar situations exist in other regions, with 66% of jeepneys not consolidated in Calabarzon and 63% in Zamboanga Peninsula. Nationally, 30% of jeepney units have yet to comply with the consolidation deadline. Despite President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. stating that there would be no extension, Transport Group Piston is hopeful for a temporary restraining order from the Supreme Court against the program's implementation. Piston argued that if the remaining 30% of jeepneys were not allowed to run in the country, there could be a massive transport crisis nationwide.
The Department of Health has logged an uptick in chikungunya cases in the country, surging by 384%. DOH's latest disease surveillance report showed that there were 2,699 cases reported from January to October, compared to 552 during the same period last year. The health department, however, disclosed that no deaths were recorded in the past 2 years. The World Health Organization noted that like dengue, the chikungunya virus proliferates in people through the bite of an infected mosquito. Patients with chikungunya will have symptoms like fever, severe joint pain, muscle pain, headache, nausea, fatigue, and rashes. The health organization discloses that the disease is not fatal. As dengue, however, no vaccine has yet been developed against chikungunya.
Pagasa has assured the public that the water level at Angat Dam will be enough to last through the dry season, especially this ongoing El Niño phenomenon. State hydrologists said that Angat's current elevation lies at 213.33 meters above the normal high water level. Pag-asa noted that there was enough rainfall that supplied the dam due to other weather systems such as the shear line and low pressure areas. The State Weather Bureau, however, urged the public to conserve water and energy. This especially during the dry spell. Meanwhile, Metro Manila and neighboring areas that depend on the Angat Dam may experience problems once the reservoir reaches 180 meters and below.
The Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, has reported that since President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s inauguration, his foreign visits have attracted about $72.178 billion or 4.019 trillion pesos in investments across various sectors. These investments cover business and investment promotions, operational activities, and signed agreements, realizing tangible outcomes in sectors such as technology, health, energy, and other investment services. The Department of Trade and Industry is also actively monitoring 20 approved and registered projects currently in the pipeline. These projects span sectors such as manufacturing, renewable energy, data centers, and telecommunications. Other investments include 9 projects from President Marcos's visits to the ASEAN-Japan Commemorative Summit in Tokyo and 6 projects from the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Leaders Meeting in San Francisco.
The Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, anticipates an increase in job opportunities for Filipinos in Japan, South Korea, Canada, and Saudi Arabia. DMW Undersecretary Patricia Yvonne Kaunan mentioned their department is working on a framework agreement to facilitate the deployment of more workers in Canada. This framework aims to streamline the recruitment process and provide clarity on the terms and costs of employment. Additionally, the DMW sees potential job openings in Japan and South Korea. Japan is interested in hiring Filipinos in sectors such as agriculture, hospitality, manufacturing, and care work, while South Korea is in talks for the possible deployment of caregivers. The DMW is also in discussions with Saudi Arabia and its mega construction firms for skilled Filipino workers to be assigned in the Middle Eastern country. Kaunan hopes to conclude talks and finalize deployment agreements by the first quarter of 2024.
The Philippines is seeking to build a permanent military post in the Ayungin Shoal. The Armed Forces of the Philippines welcomed the proposal after Senator Sonny Angara confirmed that the Philippine Congress has allotted funds to build various facilities in the said territory. AFP spokesperson Mendel Aguilar, however, raised the urgency to establish an interagency program for the initiative. The command added that the said undertaking requires support from various government agencies. For now, BRP Sierra Madre remains the Philippines' outpost in the Ayungin Shoal.
The National Security Council, or NSC, insists that China should first stop its hostile actions at sea before it enters into a dialogue with the Philippines. Territorial disputes between the Philippines and China have grown more tense this year as Beijing seeks maritime dominance in the West Philippine Sea, including those within the 370-kilometer exclusive economic zone of the Philippines. The NSC asserts dialogues can only succeed in an atmosphere of mutual respect and sincerity between two sovereign nations. The Philippines, according to the NSC, is ready to reciprocate such respect and sincerity, provided that China's bullying, harassment, and aggressive actions are ended immediately. Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Aquilino Coco Pimentel III advised the public not to fall into China's trap or propaganda in the West Philippine Sea. The senator says Filipinos should fight for its territory in the West Philippine Sea. He also urged the government to continue educating people about the sovereignty of the Philippines in the contested region. Coming up, Chinese leader Xi Jinping is resolute to Taiwan's reunification with China. Ukraine set to lower its conscription age to its military service. And 5 DR Congo opposition presidential candidates unite in a call for a rerun. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
masasabi mong tunay na kaibigan?
Yep! At kapag siya'y natagpuan na, huwag mo nang pakawalan.
Ang tunay na kaibigan, laging nandyan kahit kailan.
Handang gawin ang lahat. Maging happy ka lang.
Gagawin ang Afro-Song para sa'yo, para sa pamilya, at para sa bayan.
Tulad na lang ng inyong mga bagong kaibigan.
Tuwing umaga,
Love
Tunipet
and
and Afro-Song!
everything!
Lunes hanggang Biyernes,
6:30 ng umaga
sa Net 25! Let's get
Mga problemang may kinalaman sa pang-araw-araw na pamumuhay.
Ano sa palagay niyo?
Katiwalian at korupsyon sa kung saan-saan.
Ano sa palagay niyo?
Kalusugan,
Ano sa palagay niyo?
edukasyon,
Ano sa palagay nyo?
hanap buhay.
Ano sa palagay nyo?
Ang daming issue. Samahan ninyo sina Ali Soto at Pat P. Daza sa pagbusisi sa lahat ng yan at iba pa. Ano sa palagay nyo? Year 3 na!
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Chinese President Xi Jinping has vowed to firmly prevent anyone from splitting Taiwan from China in any way. This is over Beijing's assertion on its One China principle, which Taiwan is an alienable or inalienable part of its sovereignty. Taiwan is set to hold its presidential and parliamentary elections on January 13, 2024, where how the island handles relations with China becomes a major point of dispute in the campaign. China, however, describes the Taiwan election as an internal Chinese affair. Beijing has repeatedly condemned the front-runner to be the island's next leader, Lai Ching-te, as a dangerous separatist and has refused his calls for talks. Meanwhile, Taiwan's main opposition party, the Kuomintang, decries China's call for reunification, citing that the island's people can decide their future.
China's foreign ministry said Beijing's involvement in the Russian Arctic liquefied natural gas 2 project should not be the target of any third-party intervention or restrictions. China's statement came after Washington imposed sanctions on the Russian project. The embargo is still part of the sweeping measures against Russia over its conflict with Ukraine. Foreign shareholders suspended participation in the project over fears of backlash from the U.S. sanctions. The shareholders also renounced their responsibilities for financing and for offtake contracts for the plant. Sources said Novatek and Chinese state-owned oil majors CNOOC and China National Petroleum Corp. declared force majeure. Under the law and contracts, a seller of goods or services may declare force majeure in the event that it cannot supply them due to circumstances beyond its control. But it must notify the other party and offer an explanation. The United States did not release any comment about China's statement.
Russian President Vladimir Putin hosts leaders of ex-Soviet republics forming the Commonwealth of Independent States, or CIS. At present, the CIS has 9 full member states, which include Azerbaijan, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. Putin says the CIS will further strengthen economic cooperation, adding that for the past 10 months, trade among the bloc grew by 2%, or $83.7 billion, higher than the same period a year ago. Putin also vows that Russia will contribute in a constructive manner to maintain security and stability in the region.
В конструктивном ключе будем стараться выстраивать совместную работу по тематике поддержания безопасности и стабильности в нашем общем евразийском регионе, борьбы с терроризмом и экстремизмом, трансграничной преступностью, незаконным оборотом наркотиков и коррупцией.
Ukraine has targeted a Russian landing warship in Crimea in an overnight strike using cruise missiles, resulting in the unfortunate loss of at least one life. This attack occurred amidst rising tensions, with Russia suggesting potential attempts to annex additional Ukrainian territory along the Black Sea coast. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, Ukraine employed air-launched missiles to target the Crimean port of Feodosia, causing damage to the Novocherkassk large landing ship. The specifics of the cruise missiles used in the assault were not disclosed by Ukraine, with both Britain and France having provided Kyiv with such missiles.
Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu says Ukraine's counteroffensive has completely failed. RT correspondent Roman Kosarev reports.
The main efforts of Russian armed forces in the outgoing year were concentrated on achieving the objectives of the special military operation. The main one was to thwart the counteroffensive loudly announced by Ukraine and its NATO allies. This task has been successfully accomplished.
The Russian defense minister spoke about what actually helped to achieve the goals that he talked about earlier in the day. And that's, of course, the increased combat capability and the use of Russian equipment, the complex system of defensive lines, a major increase in the production of weapons. And that's just a few of the things that he spoke about. Now, Sergei Shoigu also pointed out that Russia's own military-industrial complex had challenged the much praised and vaunted NATO military technical potential. Also, he stated the obvious in saying that Russia continues to seize the initiative and is constantly expanding its controlled territories. And the latest example of that is, of course, Mariinka, which is just outside of the city of Donetsk, not far away from where I'm standing. For years, that town remained a major stronghold for the Ukrainian army. Let's take a listen to what Shoigu said to Putin about Mariinka.
During active offensive operations, assault teams of the Southern Group have completely liberated the city of Mariinka. It is located 5 kilometers southwest of the regional capital Donetsk. Over the past 9 years, Ukrainian armed forces built a powerful stronghold there. Thanks to the decisive actions of our servicemen, the stronghold was breached. The liberation of that city naturally reduces the defensive capabilities of the Ukrainian armed forces and gives us additional opportunities for further actions in that direction.
The defense minister also praised the skillful and decisive actions of the Russian armed forces, saying that they selflessly ensure the security of the entire country and all of its citizens. Meanwhile, Ukraine continues its unsuccessful attempts to decrease Russia's military capabilities. Earlier, it attacked a Russian landing ship in a Crimean dock, reportedly using NATO-supplied missiles. According to official information, the attack caused some damage to the vessel, while Ukrainian officials claim that it was completely destroyed. Also, local authorities said that in that attack, one person was killed and several were wounded.
Ukraine is set to lower its conscription age to 25. This is in line with the changes to mobilization laws proposed by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. A draft law was submitted to Kyiv's parliament, Verkhovna Rada. Local media reported that besides lowering the conscription age by 2 years, the legislation also calls for the introduction of electronic military summons. This would be sent to the draftees online, including via email. Under the proposed bill, those who fail to show up at recruitment offices on time shall face penalties, where they will be included in the country's register of debtors. Last week, Zelensky said that the Ukrainian military had proposed mobilizing an additional 450,000 to 500,000 individuals during its war against Russia. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, however, claimed that some 400,000 Ukrainian forces had been killed or wounded since the start of the conflict in February 2022.
Meanwhile, Colorado authorities and the FBI are now investigating possible threats against state Supreme Court justices. The Denver Police Department says they are providing extra patrols around the homes of the justices who ruled that former United States President Donald Trump should be disqualified under the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment for engaging in insurrection. The department declined to provide details about its investigations, citing safety and privacy considerations since the probe is ongoing.
5 opposition presidential candidates in the Democratic Republic of Congo have united in a call for a rerun of the general elections, asserting that the decision by the Election Commission to extend the ballot was unconstitutional. Following a day marred by administrative chaos, delays, and closed polling stations, electoral authorities announced the continuation of voting in areas where ballots could not be cast on the previous day. However, opposition figures, including Nobel Peace laureate Denis Mukwege and former oil executive Martin Fayulu, deemed this extension illegal and collectively advocated for a fresh election. Amid concerns that the simultaneous polls could lead to chaos in the mineral-rich yet economically challenged Central African nation, the fears materialized on voting day with delays and bureaucratic obstacles. Major opposition candidates expressed suspicion that the government is poised to engage in electoral fraud, adding further complexity to the electoral landscape.
United States and Somali forces have successfully eliminated Maalim Ayman, a senior commander of the Al-Shabaab militant group, during a joint operation. Ayman, who had a $10 million bounty on his head, was held responsible for planning various deadly terrorist attacks in Somalia and neighboring regions. The U.S. State Department had identified him as the mastermind behind the 2020 attack on the Manda Bay airfield in Kenya. The collaborative effort between the Somali National Army and U.S. forces targeted Ayman, marking a significant achievement in countering the al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab group's insurgency in the region.
In the aftermath of a drone strike on a U.S. airbase in Iraq that resulted in injuries to American personnel, the United States military has launched attacks on Iranian-backed militant groups in Iraq. This retaliatory action targeted 3 sites used by Kataib Hezbollah and other affiliated militant factions. Iraq reported 1 fatality and 18 injuries, including civilians, resulting from these U.S. strikes. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin characterized the attacks as necessary and proportionate, emphasizing that they had received authorization from U.S. President Joe Biden. Austin clarified that these strikes on Iraqi soil were only a direct response to the earlier drone strike that inflicted injuries on 3 American personnel, emphasizing the military action as a retaliatory measure.
Ministry sources say Israel returns the bodies of 80 Palestinians killed in Gaza. This after taking them from morgues and graves to check if there were hostages among them. Myla Simbulan tells us more.
After they were inspected, they were returned to the Red Cross and then to Hamas authorities. This through the Kerem Shalom crossing between Israel and the Gaza Strip. The blue body bags were seen lowered into a trench in Rafah, in the far south of the narrow territory. They were then reported to have been transported in a truck to a mass grave in Gaza. Israeli figures say around 250 hostages were taken to the Gaza Strip by Hamas militants when they attacked southern Israel on October 7. The attack left around 1,140 people dead. At present, some 129 hostages remain in Hamas captivity. Myla Simbulan for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Police in India are investigating reports of a blast near the Israeli embassy in New Delhi. The Tuesday explosion did not cause any casualties. Mark Castillo has the details.
Indian officers cordoned off the embassy as they combed through the surrounding areas following the report of the late afternoon blast. Israel's foreign ministry reports in a statement that an explosion occurred near the embassy. The statement adds all of the embassy's workers and diplomats are safe. The embassy says its security teams are working with the local police in the investigation. Local media reports the discovery of a letter close to the scene addressed to the Israeli ambassador. It is described as abusive, but not further details have been given. The blast took place in a tightly controlled neighborhood, home to government buildings and diplomatic missions. Mark Castillo from Matan ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Forecasts suggest that the United Kingdom's house prices will ease in the coming year, but renting costs will remain to soar. From Europe, Love and Season reports.
United Kingdom's government forecasted that house prices would go down while the cost of renting a home will continue to rise next year. UK analysts said that property prices would drop by nearly 5%. UK Finance, on the other hand, predicted that the nation's lending for house purchases will drop by 8% in 2024. Rents on newly let properties, however, could go up by a further 5 to 6%. This would limit tenants saving for a deposit, especially those wanting to buy a home. The average cost of a new let has increased by 31% over the last 3 years. Zoopla data shows that this is equivalent to £3,360 on average. Love and Season, London Bureau for Matan ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Latest data from the market shows that gold rose in the final week of this year as traders expect the U.S. dollar to weaken in 2024. Analysts say the greenback will weaken due to the anticipated interest rate cuts by the Federal Reserve. Other factors that favor gold gains against this year are the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and the Middle East war.
A new military-run Mexican airline championed by President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador took to the skies, promising lower fares than its main rivals. The launch of Mexicana de Aviación comes after the government announced in August that it was buying the brand of the carrier that went bankrupt 13 years ago. Percy Parlade has the details.
The airline's main base is Mexico City's second international airport, Felipe Ángeles. It will serve more than a dozen domestic destinations. The new airport north of the capital has struggled to attract carriers since opening in March 2022. Mexicana's first flight was to the Caribbean resort town of Tulum, where the government inaugurated a new airport at the start of December. The airline is operated by the military-controlled group Olmeca Maya Mexica. It also runs other government projects such as a new tourist train launched this month in southeastern Mexico. Since taking office in 2018, Lopez Obrador has given increased responsibility to the armed forces. In addition to their public security role, they control ports and customs and major infrastructure projects. Percival Parlade for Matan ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In just 3 years, billionaire Mackenzie Scott has given away $14 billion to charity. Scott is one of the world's richest women, and her quest to give a large chip of her wealth to the needy continues. Sources say 70 nonprofit organizations received unrestricted donations from Scott this year. The sum of the gifts is $97 million. Her donations also range from $1 million to $15 million. Reports say nearly half went to charities focused on early childhood education and early childhood development. At least 1,621 charities since 2020 benefited from Scott's charitable works. Up next, a mud wave sweeps the only bridge in Rincon, Florida. Floods displaced thousands in Indonesia's Aceh province. And China sends 3 more satellites into orbit. All these and more when Matan ng Agila International returns.
Nakaka-relate kay you.
Menopause. Meron ka bang nararamdaman ng mga signs ng menopause?
Menopause really happens. In my case, I had a condition called endometriosis.
Miss Corina, ang ganda po ng hair nyo. Ano pong shampoo nyo?
Mapa-senior man kay you.
My apos are here. They're here with me and they give me such joy. And so, kung hindi ako magtatrabaho, how could I spoil them?
O Gen Z.
Nar is actually an accent from Australia. So like when you say no, you don't say no. They say nar.
Bida kayo dito.
Sumay!
Let's just always choose to be kind.
Kaya ugaliin ang tumutok kung saan masaya at maganda ang simula ng araw. 10 a.m. to 12, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, kada umaga.
Following days of heavy torrential rain, a massive mud wave swept entirely the only bridge in an Argentina town. Local residents captured the moment the surging Rincon River was hit by a sudden wave of murky water. The bridge was lifted right off the road instead of shattering under the weight of the wave. Government officials said that the Rincon Bridge was one of two structures destroyed by the recent flooding. No casualties were reported. Meanwhile, the Civil Defense Force has been mobilized to provide aid to the residents in Rincon and other affected areas by the flooding.
Rescue crews search for survivors after 7 people died in heavy storms across Australia's eastern seaboard. The dead include a 40-year-old woman sucked into a storm water drain. Emmy Capilita Roja tells us more.
Thunderstorms and strong winds have pounded the Australian states of Victoria and Queensland. Boats capsized, flash floods sparked, concrete power lines torn down. The Australian Weather Bureau warns that coastal regions in Queensland are still at risk of dangerous storms, life-threatening floods, giant hail, and damaging winds. On Tuesday, 3 women were swept into a stormwater drain when floodwaters surged through the rural town of Gympie, a city in Queensland. One of the women survived. A 40-year-old woman did not. Emergency services now hold serious concerns for a 46-year-old who is still missing. Queensland Fire and Emergency Services says swift water rescue teams would continue scouring the area. 11 people were tossed into the ocean when a boat capsized at sea near Brisbane. Police say 2 people drowned. 8 survivors have been scooped from the water and rushed to hospital. A search is still on for a missing crew member. Meanwhile, in Victoria, a woman was found dead late on Tuesday evening. This after flash floods swamped a regional campground in Buchan. A man was killed after being struck by a falling tree branch in Coringo. Emmy Capilita Roja for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Tragedy struck off the coast of Australia's Moreton Bay as a large boat carrying 11 individuals capsized, leading to the confirmed deaths of 3 people. The motorboat overturned just south of Green Island, prompting an extensive search and rescue operation involving water police vessels, police divers, the Coast Guard, and volunteers. 8 individuals were successfully recovered from the water and transported to Manly Harbor with injuries that unfortunately, or fortunately rather, were not life-threatening. The search continued overnight in the hope of locating the 3 missing men, but authorities concluded the operation this morning after discovering their lifeless bodies. As rescue operations are finalized, a report for the coroner is being prepared to provide a comprehensive account of the incident.
Torrential rains have hit Indonesia's Aceh province. The downpour has forced thousands of people from their homes. Philip Toledo reports.
The deluge has inundated houses and public buildings in the community of Loksukan. Some 40,000 residents have been affected. At least 5,000 have been evacuated from their homes. They are staying in tents set up as temporary shelters. Authorities say that what is urgently needed now is food for those who have been displaced. One official says the water is now 1.7 meters high and still rising. Others who have houses on higher ground are on standby to evacuate. There, the water is 50 to 70 centimeters deep, but if it rises overnight, they will be forced to leave as well. Philip Toledo for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
French police have arrested a 33-year-old man with a history of psychiatric illness on suspicion of murdering his wife and their 4 children. It's the latest in a series of shocking cases around Paris in recent months where men have allegedly murdered their families. Estela Dominique has more details.
Authorities found the bodies of the 35-year-old woman and her children, aged 9 months, 4, 7, and 10 years old, in their home in the town east of Paris after worried friends and family called the police. The suspect, a plumber, has been receiving treatment since 2017 for depression and psychotic behavior. He was already held in 2019 after stabbing his partner in the shoulder blade when she was pregnant with their 3rd child and trying to kill herself. Prosecutors says she refused to press charges. He was treated again after the attack and said he did not mean to harm her. The case was dropped as he was deemed to be mentally deficient. The couple, who had met in high school, married in October. Police arrested the suspect near his father's home in a neighboring town on Tuesday. Estela Dominique from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A Tesla robot has attacked a software engineer after it malfunctioned in the Giga, Texas factory. Witnesses said the robot pinned the engineer and dug its metal claws into his back and arm. The robot was designed only to move aluminum car parts. Reports said the victim suffered from laceration on his left hand. Tesla, however, declined to comment on the incident. Injury reports submitted to the U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration claimed that nearly 1 out of 21 workers at the Giga, Texas factory got hurt in 2022. Meanwhile, the automotive industry's median injury rate was 1 in every 30 workers in the same year.
Over 5,000 migrants continue to march through Mexico's southern Chiapas state toward the distant United States border. The migrants claim they gave up on trying to obtain safe passage permits to legally cross Mexico into the U.S. after allegedly waiting for months to obtain one. Elise Danielle has more.
Thousands of migrants are marching in a caravan from the southern tip of Mexico. They are protesting against the closing of local immigration authorities that they expect to provide transit permits to advance towards the United States. The caravan started 2 days after Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador announced an agreement with Washington to further contain the migratory flow in Mexico. A visit from a high school level U.S. delegation to address the extraordinary immigration situation is expected next week. Lopez Obrador announced that it will be about taking measures to reinforce the deterrence of migrants in the south of the country. The caravan left at dawn on Sunday under the name Exodus from Poverty. In recent weeks, U.S. Border Police have reported about 10,000 crossings per day. This is a more intense pace than previous weeks. Elise Danielle for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
China successfully launched a Long March 11 carrier rocket into space, sending 3 satellites into planned orbit. The rocket was launched from the Taiwan Satellite Launch Center south of China's Guangdong province. China said their Xi'an-24Z satellites will be mainly used for space science and technology experiments.
Seoul has imposed sanctions to Pyongyang's intelligence agency chief over illicit cyber activities. This follows North Korea's recent launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile. South Korea's foreign ministry said that Ri Chang-ho, the head of North Korea's Reconnaissance General Bureau, was purportedly involved in earning foreign currency via illegal cyber activities and technology theft. It also claimed that Ri's activities have contributed to generating revenue for the North Korean regime, procuring funds for its nuclear activities. Seoul has also sanctioned 7 other North Korean individuals, including former China-based diplomat Yoon Chol. The South Korean government has barred 83 individuals and 53 entities related to Pyongyang's weapons programs since October 2022. Coming right up, dense fog causes travel chaos in India. South Korean actor Lee Sun-kyung dies at age 48. And BTS V and Umi join forces for a spectacular collaboration. Catch more news in sports and entertainment when we return.
Aking pangarap na sana mapababa natin ang presyo ng bigas ng 20 piso. Hindi pa tayo umabot doon.
Hindi na po itutuloy ng Office of the Vice President ang kahi para sa confidential funds.
Makinig na sa gobyerno, ICC. At pupunta na rito.
Maliwanag ang sinabi ng Presidente dyan. We have no legal duty to cooperate.
Itong napakaagang pangayan sa politika, hindi makakatulong.
Wala akong ibang ipinakuusap. Ibasura yung consolidation.
Ang kulit naman.
Sama-sama natin hinarap dito sa ASPN ang mga may init na issue ngayong 2023. Kaya't sa pagtatapos ng taon, huwag bibitiw at samahan pa rin ang Team ASPN tuwing Lunes hanggang Biyernes. Dito lang sa Net 25.
Ang mikroponong ito'y naglalahad ng saloobin, oras na para ipasa sa bagong makatanagin. Galing ay ipamalas, pangarap ilabas, itodo ang lakas, rap sa Pilipinas.
One goal, one dream. Road to Storkada. Monday to Friday, 5:30 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Let's get together. Sunday 25. Sunday 25.
An amateur photographer captured a video of an alligator devouring an invader in Everglades National Park in Florida. According to Allison Jocelyn, the reptile was eating a large Burmese python that was not native to Florida. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission described Burmese pythons are invasive due to their impact on native wildlife. The agency disclosed the snakes have been found to prey upon a variety of mammals, birds, reptiles, and even alligators. The Wildlife Commission added that the species is said to be among the largest snakes in the world and often found near or in water.
Extreme cold and dense fog have unleashed travel disruptions in India's capital, Delhi, and other northern regions. Over 100 flights and 25 trains in Delhi are facing delays due to significantly reduced visibility caused by one of the foggiest days this season, with visibility dropping to below 50 meters on Wednesday. The thick blanket of mist during the morning rush hour brought traffic to a standstill and contributed to accidents in various areas. Reports of accidents have surfaced in other parts of northern India as well. A collision involving multiple vehicles occurred on a prominent expressway neighboring region Uttar Pradesh, resulting in several injuries, though fortunately there have been no reported casualties. India's Weather Office has issued an advisory warning of continued foggy conditions for the next 5 days, urging caution while driving and recommending the use of fog lights to enhance visibility while on the road.
South Korean actor Lee Sun-kyun of the Oscar-winning film Parasite was found dead in Warryong Park. The police found Lee's body in a car. Lee's body was later taken to Seoul National University Hospital. The 48-year-old actor was being investigated for suspected drug use since October.
Big Hit Music says BTS's V and American singer Umi will release a new song titled Wherever You Are on December 30. The collaboration between the two singers has sent social media platforms into frenzy. Music fans say Unique's song perfectly blends V's soulful singing with Umi's smooth melodies to create a beautiful romantic tune. Some fans have posted a compilation of possible snippets of V's parts in the new song. And to send you off this Wednesday night, here's our quote from Green Day vocalist Billie Joe Armstrong. To do something that you feel in your heart that's great, you need to make a lot of mistakes. Anything that's successful is a series of mistakes.
I have to admit, in the past, I used to not like to do things that I'm not good at with that fear of making mistakes. But those are the things we should actually focus on. Because as we always say, it equates to growth and just really developing yourself more.
And you really have to allow room for discovery, because it's the fear that'll keep you from discovering many new things about yourself. The things that you could probably even be good at if you'll only try to find out.
So maybe that's something again for the new year that we can think about.
Definitely.
Just try new things.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Elago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Thank you for choosing Mata ng Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International, your trusted news source, connecting you to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.